power in their hand, and they need to be able to look at that, understand that, and adapt. And I know that it's hard sometimes for people to change their attitudes, and it's hard sometimes for some of the folks that sit on the boards of directors of real estate organizations that have been there for 30 years to change their ideas about what needs to take place. But at the same time, you have people with, younger people with different ideas about this. And there is, I look at my granddaughter, she's 12. And there's things that she can do that a lot of people selling real estate today can't do. A lot of things she can do that I can't do. And if I want to do business with her generation, NAR tells us like something like 78.8% of all first-time homebuyers last year were Gen X, Gen Y, and they're using the technology in a different way. And if we want to appeal to them, we need to be able to communicate. And I could call my granddaughter right now on the cell phone, and she would not probably answer me. But if I text her, she will.
Legal, so the consumer can search for what agent speaks a certain language. We probably have over 100 languages that are on there right now. Languages I've never even heard of that I remember speak. They also can search for cultures that an agent may specialize in.
So clearly the adoption and relevance of technology is extremely important. I think the MLS is in a great situation as the keeper of the data to actually educate their constituents on technology. And it's not just about the technology on the data, it's technology in the industry. The challenge for the real estate agent, and you know, it's got to be a tough place to be when you've got so much changing technology and to keep abreast of everything that's going on. It's difficult. I remember back in the late 90s when I'm feeling like it was the same as it was in the late 90s, where it's information overload. You know, you have to read every article in every magazine every day to keep up with what's going on today. The gentleman was just talking today about 25, new websites or great places to go to. I hadn't heard of, 90% of those, and I'm in the space. And so I think for realtors, it's got to be tremendously challenging to keep up with that. And I think the one place where, they could really help realtors is, to help them learning about new technology, how to adopt it, how to use it, and how to make it, make their job more effective.
By a top producer, don't tell your clients the address of the property until they're in your car. That was just the rule of the game. And I couldn't understand why. And I sort of said, well, it doesn't seem to be much value added to tell them the address of the property or what it's selling for. It has a lovely kitchen. And in fact, what's happening nowadays with consumers is they have tons and tons of data. I recently was asked to write an offer on a property in a market near my market. And this client came to me, knew the MLS numbers, knew all the solds, knew more than I knew about it. And so what this consumer was hungry for was data. Data. They wanted me to be an advisor, no longer a gatekeeper of the information. And unfortunately, it wasn't my market, so I wasn't the best advisor because I didn't understand their forms, I didn't know the other agents, I didn't know how they split their costs. What the consumer is looking for from the MLS is just information. They're looking for the agent to provide advice around the information. And in fact, one other interesting point is in the last 10 years or so, the use of the internet for searching homes has gone to the roof. In 1995, it was like 2%. Now it's like 85% go on the internet. Yet FSBOs as a percent of sales have actually gone down. I've seen it 50% of what it was 10 years ago. 60%, whatever. It's gone down because it used to be that we would show a client 6 homes and they'd buy one of them. Now they're looking at 100 homes and they're confused and they need agents more than ever. So as long as the data is there and the agents are there to provide advice, the MLS is doing their job.
Right, they're a lot more educated than they were in the past. Absolutely, to your point. And I think with that education comes an education that the real estate agents need. And when you think about the questions that an informed consumer has, they're much more pertinent than they possibly were in the past, as opposed to how many bedrooms and baths there are. You're asking very detailed questions because they can go to many places to find out this information. There's tons of access to information right now. So the consumers are changing because they're more educated, they're more intelligent. They're younger too. So the gap is the big issue, right? As everybody has mentioned about, you've got younger people buying homes, and the younger people buying homes more adapt to technology, more adapt to working in a different way. They don't want to communicate they don't want to communicate verbally potentially until they're ready. They want to communicate via text.
Or at all, in some cases.
Yeah, or at all. They just want information. So clearly the consumers are changing, and I think I hate to get back to what I said before, but I really think it gets back to education, the MLS. I think the MLS is in a great position, to keep real estate agents abreast of what the next question is going to be from a consumer. Because the consumers are going to ask hard questions, and you want a professional real estate agent to have the answers, and I think the people that can help them attain those answers are the ones.
And to get back to this conversation about Web 2.0 and how that plays into it, I think MLSs need to understand that not only because realtors need to understand it, but because MLSs need to understand it. And most people talk about Web 2.0, but they're not really clear about it. And so we need to review the concepts, and we need to look at the ideas of sharing and collaborating and self-organizing and policing and all these things that Web 2.0 is. And then we need to look at the MLS and how the MLS can get in and kind of adapt its technology to it. And I think the MLS needs to look at a parcel-based idea as opposed to a transaction-based idea. And so really, real estate listing is a point in time in a real estate transaction, in a property, in the life of a property. But really, the property's there forever. And so if the MLS was set up to be able to collect information over the long haul, whether or not the property's for sale, and then could add authoritative information about it and make it available to the realtor, and often, who knows best about a neighborhood than the people that live in the neighborhood. And so that's kind of the communication, sharing, collaboration, Web 2.0, and the MLS should facilitate all those types of conversations, should invite those kinds of conversations. And I know there are liabilities and what if it's not correct, but then you got to go read wisdom of crowds and the long tail and Wikinomics, and all this stuff is kind of bubbling around out there, and MLS can start to adopt, adapt, use, because the realtor of tomorrow and the consumer of tomorrow, they're going to be used to all this stuff. And so get this idea of a property wiki. An MLS should be a property wiki. And if you're familiar with the term wiki, they start out as technology, but Wikipedia is the one we're most familiar with. They take what they call a stub, like a word or a phrase, and then they invite people to write about it. And over time, it gets better and better and better, and it becomes more accurate. And a property wiki, and that's what an MLS really should be, is a property wiki where the stub is the address or the parcel number. And then people can go in and write about it, and realtors can write about it, and consumers can write about it, and the seller can write about it, and over time it'll get better and better and better, and then when it's for sale, it's just a switch. And it just says, now this property's for sale. And then we invite the conversation, and we invite, and should it be downloadable onto a mobile device? If that's what the consumer wants, then it should be. It's the way we did things in real estate. And then we went to using computers, and they were tied to phone banks. Remember that? On Monday morning, you go in to show property, and the line's busy. Right? And so the MLS was directly tied. That was MLS 3.0, and then somebody got the idea that we could access the MLS through the web. And that was MLS 4.0, and now we have to start looking at MLS as a property wiki. And with Web 2.0 concepts and the aggregation of information beyond the property being for sale. And I think that some MLSs are starting to get the idea, and some MLS vendors are starting to get the idea. And that's where all this needs to go.
How close are they really going?
I believe that real estate's hyper-local. That said, the consolidation of MLSs would make my job as a vendor much easier. However, I do not believe it will get rid of the realtor. It might get rid of a lot of the realtors. Okay, the ones who don't have good advice. But those who know what they're doing will be more in demand than ever.
But you got that question earlier about what should a realtor redefine, and people have been saying this for years, but now it makes a lot more sense, and that is realtors need to create a compelling argument for what they do. And the compelling argument is not to help people find the information, because people can find the information everywhere. Good information, bad information. Part of the compelling argument is to help the consumer put that information into the context of the consumer's life. And since that average term of home ownership is like 5 to 8 years, it's not all that easy for a consumer to do. And so the realtor now becomes more valuable as that trusted and authoritative source and advisor. And that's the message that realtors need to be able to convey.
You have a question?